Today's Gemara in Moed Katan Daf Yomi. So the learning should be tremendous. Choshidah for so Chaim in the version. Remember, as basic Gittel Shem Desu Pasuk Shan Malkol Mercha B'Zavshendel. As to Gittel Bas Zavshendel Shem Ben Chayesh Shlomo Lebi Zahava Oifik Benteli Rachel Bastina. They should find the Shidduch Bakara Mamish, as we learned yesterday about the incredible Baskel that emanates and tells everyone they're predestined Shidduchim. Mir Sashan. The learning should be an incredible Schos Shidduch that all those who need their Shidduchim should find their Shidduch Hagoin Bakara Mamish, as well as learning should be Schos for Shlema for Avram Ben Ruchladei Shimsh Ben Chana Vigal Beverel Bes Esther Miriam Gabriela Bas Pluma Yishal Yisuk Ben Dilam Sar Bas Kilish Mizach Ben Esther Yehudis Shmuel Yosef Ben Henry Afraid Menik Ben Vega Chaim Ben Sar Shlom Zim Ben Rizal Eita Sar Bas Knandi Tvasim Bas Chaysei Yisrael Ben Mendel Yezer Ben Yehudish Arleva Shlomo Bas Naomi Bas Shavigur Shir Chana Shmuel Ben Tila Din Chan Rizal Ben Chay Bas Mina Din Eiram Bas Shem Hindas Viva Vegvara Rivka Bas Shav Dal Zim Ben Chaz Amri Yakoit Besoich Shar Chayli Yisrael. We pick it up on the very bottom of Yud Ches Amid Beis, continuing the halachos of Chol HaMoed. Yesterday we started learning about the Isser Ksiva. You can't just write. We're seeing incredible halachas, incredible concepts. I'm sure many has an eye-opening experience. Yeah, we just write. We just do whatever we want in Chol HaMoed. We're realizing, no, you can't work. You can't even write. We saw yesterday. Certain cases, you're allowed to write. We pointed out that maybe, even if nowadays writing is not the Maisa Uman, but still you have to have a tzarich. Continues the Mishnah on the bottom of Yechasem HaBeis. Ein koisvin shtarei choy v'moed. You're not allowed to write a loan document on Chol HaMoed. If you don't believe the person, you need the money, or the scribe, and we brought this as a raya, those who are writing up the shtar, if he has nothing to eat, then you're allowed to write the shtar. You're not allowed to write Sifrei Stam. You can't write Sifrei Torah, you can't write Tefillin and Mezuzahs on Chol HaMoed. Ezra, not even allowed to correct even one single letter in the Torah of Ezra. Rav Yehuda disagrees. Rav Yehuda says you're allowed to write tefillin and mezuzahs for yourself. As we turn over to Yud Tesam and Aleph, today's daf. And as well, Rav Yehuda says, "V'toive al yerechai tcheles letzitzitzai." You're allowed to spin the tcheles for the tzitzis. We're on your lap, on your yerech, on your thighs. Before we see the Gemara, let's just see one beautiful picture. We see over here this wonderful Jew spinning tcheles, the blue dye, for his tzitzis, and you see that he's not doing it in any professional manner. The way that he's spinning the threads together is on his thigh, and we'll see in the Gemara a bit more about this. And of course, this has to do with the fact that there was, and some say there still is, but definitely there was, that you have to put tzitzis, you have to put chilos on your tzitzis. Nowadays is a big fight, which we're not going to get into right now. Tanu Rabbanan says the Gemara, says the Gemara, beginning opinion number one, you're allowed to write Sifrei Stam, you're allowed to write Sfarim, Tefillin, and Mezuzahs, and you're allowed to, for yourself, and you're allowed to spin the tchilas for the tzitzis on your thigh. And you're allowed to do this for other people as a taiva. You're not allowed to collect the money for it. You're allowed to do it as a favor. Divir Meir, opinion number one. Opinion number two, says the Gemara, Rav Yehuda Ma'arin. You're allowed to employ harama. You're allowed to be cunning. How do you do that? Sell your own pair of tefillin, and then you rewrite tefillin for yourself, meaning, and then you could sell them. So you're allowed to find a way that you're essentially doing it for yourself, but not really. You're going to sell it. Rav Yehuda, you're allowed to write and sell it normally to support yourself. Three different opinions, and says the Gemara, what's the halacha? Rav told Rav Chananel 8 lines down. You test them at all. First one line is Chananel. V'amilo Rav Chananel. Halacha. What's halacha? You're allowed to do enough for your parnasa, and there is a Taisus over here that explains that Kedei Parnasa, it doesn't just mean for beer, bone, bread, and butter, but it means Kedei Parnasa means even for, to have a food for a Yontif. I'm just looking for the Taisus over here. I think it's this big one. I just can't find the line right now. Even to have food for the Yontif, to have Basar and Yayin, etc. That's all included in Kedei Parnasa. And continues the Gemara where it's a 2 dots, about 8 lines down. V'toival Yerecha Tchilas, you're allowed to spin the tcheles on your thigh. You're not allowed to do it with an uman. That's what Rav Elazar says. What are you allowed to do? You're allowed to even spin it with a stone. This was the normal way of spinning shreds and threads and strings. And the Chacham are basically saying you don't need such a shinoi. Rav Yehuda Imer Mishmai be'even avoloi bepelach. Says Rav Yehuda, you know what you're allowed to do? Bishma, he's saying this is the name of Rav Eliezer. You're allowed to use a pelach. You're allowed to use a stone and not a pelach. Pelach is the spindle, which is the normal way. So there's three ways we're learning of spinning tittis. The spindle, the pelach is the most normal, and Evan is a slight deviation, and spinning with nothing on your thigh is a major deviation. You're allowed to do whatever you want. You'll do whatever you want, and you let it sell it for your parnasa. That is the shita. That is the psak halacha. Says the Gemara, or more importantly, says the Mishnah. Now we're going to go back into Dine Avelos as they deal with Yontif. So if someone buries his mace 3 days before Yontif, there's no more Shiva. If one sat the first 3 days of Shiva and then Yontif comes, Yontif wipes away the rest of Shiva. Shemaina, if someone sat the full 7 days of Shiva and Yontif is on day number 8, there's no more shleishim. Once Yontif comes and wipes away shleishim, and Nesha Amru the Chachamim said, Shabbos, we all know this. Shabbos counts as one of the 7 days of mourning, even though you're not really being Noyig Avelus, but it's one of the 7 days of mourning. But it does not stop, it does not split up the Avelus, doesn't cut it short. Regalin mafsikin ve'inon island. Regalim, Yontif, does stop Avelus, but they don't count. Meaning, in the event, like we just said, that you have 7 days of Avelus, and day number 8 is Yontif, what happens? Regal is mafsik, finished, there's no more shleishim. But in an island, in the event that you didn't have 7 days, let's say you had 5 days, and then comes along Yontif, as we're going to see in Amud Beis, then 2 days are going to be part of Shiva, but then in an island, they're not going to count towards Shloishim, and you're going to start your Shloishim after Yontif. The Gemara will explain. Rav Eliezer Omer says, Rav Eliezer, Mishachara Beis HaMikdash, Atzeres is Keshabbos. Interesting. Shavuos has a din of Shabbos. Rav Gamliel Omer, meaning as a din of Shabbos, meaning like we just said, that the day counts as a day of Avelus, but it does not stop the Avelus. Rav Gamliel Omer, Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim are Kiragalim. Chachamim Oimrim, like it Devar Zeh, Elo, Atzeres, Shavuos is Kiragalim. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippurim is Shabbos. So now let's dive straight into the Gemara and deal with what are these halachas again, that whether 3 days you cancel Shiva, 7 or 8 days you cancel Shleishim. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Gziras, Batlu Yamim, Gezeres batlu, Yamim loy batlu. When we said that the shloishim is cancelled, the shloishim is cancelled, but the days themselves are not cancelled. We'll see what that means. Yamim loy batlu. For Rav Sheshes Amar afilu yamim nami batlu. So we have a bit of a machlekes here. We don't know what it means yet. But when we say that the shloishim is cancelled, that when Yontif falls after you already are part of the shloishim, day number 8, then we have a machlekes whether the days themselves are also batal or not. Rav and Ravuna said the yomim are not batal. Rav Shesha said the days are cancelled. Says the Gemara, 2 lines from the bottom of Yitesam and Aleph. Let's understand, what does this mean? My time yomim loy balu. What does that mean? Shem loy giluach erev haregel aser legaleach achar regel. You know what it means? It means you had your 8 days, your 7 days before Yontif. So Yontif comes and knocks away the shleishim. But they explain, what does that mean? That means you're allowed to shave now. But if you didn't, then you get nailed again. Then you have to keep, as the Lanam Rashi says, kol shleishim yom. So it's a special leniency to allow you to go into Yontif shaven, haircut, clean and fresh. But if you didn't do it, then you get nailed the 30 days after Yontif. It says the Gemara of Atanya, and the top Rashi points out it's siyata. It's not a question. It's a raya. V'Atanya akover has meisl shleishim yom godem regel. Balim and exer shiva. There's no more shiva, like the Mishnah taught us. Shmini on the corner regel. Balim and exer shleishim, like the Mishnah taught us. Umegaleach erev a regel, and here's the extra din, and you're allowed to give a haircut before Yontif. But says the bracelet Tanakama, like we just saw, him loigilach erev a regel. Then you're not allowed to be megalech, allowed to get the haircut after Yontif for the full 30 days. But Abba Shalaimer, like the other opinion, just like for just like once you mourn, once you have 3 days of Shiva, it's Mivateles, Gzir Shiva, it completely wipes away the rest of the Shiva. When Yontif comes, Kach Mitzvah Shiva, Mivateles, Gzir Shleishim, so too the 7 wipes away Shleishim. And Abba Shal says it's 100%. Not just that you're allowed to get a haircut before Yontif, but even if you didn't, there's no more Shleishim even after Yontif. But ask the Gemara, look clearly at the words. He said Shiva. Shiva! Our Mishnah learned 8 days, and this goes back to something that we had a few days ago. Says the Gemara, Kesavar Abba Shal, mixes Hayyim Kikuloi. Abba Shal holds part of a day is a day of Yom HaShvi, and that's why he says day 7. Because he says day 7 is when the Shiva stops, and on day 7 the Shleishim begins. So Abba Shal learns that if you had 7 days before Yontif, and then on day 7 the Shleishim begins, and then is Yontif, that already is enough that the Yontif could come away and wipe away the Shleishim, because day number 7 counts for both. Whereas our Mishnah is clearly not like Abba Shal. Our Mishnah said day number 8. He says the Mishnah holds that day number 7 does not count for both. You have day number 7 is the end of Shiva. Day number 8 begins the Shleishim, and then if you have Yontif, then it's going to be cancelled by... It's going to cancel the Shleishim. Amar Rav Chisda says, Rav Chisda Amar Avini Bar Shila, halacha k'Abba Shal. He says that halacha is like Abba Shal, seemingly on both regards, that both mixes a Yom Kikulai, and even if you did not give a haircut before Yontif, you're allowed to take right after Yontif, and we do not require you to wait 30 days now after Yontif if you didn't do it before Yontif. This was a Gemara that we had a few days ago. If they ate is Shabbos, Erev HaRegel, and Yontif is right after Shabbos, Yontif is Sunday, and therefore Shemot Legaleach Erev Shabbos. The Chachamim are maskim on Erev Shabbos, which is what? Day number 7 of Shiva. You're allowed to get a haircut. Why? I thought the Chum don't hold the mix of Yom Kikulai. Come on, why? Because they're going with the opinion of Abba Shal, that's when you have Erev Yontif, Friday is end of Shiva, Shabbos is day 8, going straight into Yontif, then we're going to allow you to get the haircut on day 7, like Abba Shal, mixes a Yom Kikulai. Says the Gemara, come on, Azla, Had Amar Rav Amar Mamarav, Avul Kimash Amdu Menachem Metzlai, Mutar Berchitzai. This is, of course, what we do, Allah Lamaisa, that an Avel, as soon as those who are being menachemim leave him on day number 7, meaning as soon as part of day number 7 begins, mutar and berachitza, he's allowed to bathe right away, even on day 7. Keman kabashal, because it mixes a yom kikulai, and therefore even part of the day 7 is enough, and then Shiva's over. And of course, that's what we know we do, that on day number 7, the Avel gets up, the minute he walks around the corner, around the block, and then the Avel no longer has the days of Shiva, then he's allowed to go and shower. Amar Abaye, he says Abaye 7 lines from the wide lines. Halacha kabashal, when? B'yoim Shiva. On day number 7, like we just said, we paskin like Abba Shal. Then on day number 7, you have avilus for a moment. Then you no more have avilus of Shiva. Then you could go and take a bath. You could go and shower. But says Abaya, Umoidim chachamim la'Abba Shal. And the Chachamim are masking with Abba Shal b'yom shloishim tarmina mixay yom kikulai. That on day 30, we as well say mixas ayom kikulai, meaning that if the shloishim ends when? In the morning. And then that's it, shloishim is finished. That is how Abaya said it, the din. Rav Amar, no. Halacha Abba Shal b'yom shloishim. That on the end of shloishim mixes yom kikulai, and you end your shloishim in the morning. Vein halacha Abba Shal b'yom shiva. And the halacha is not like Abba Shal in day number 7, meaning you have to wait the whole day. Nahardaya Amri, halacha Abba Shal b'zu, we pass in both ways. that Shiva and Shloshim we say mixes hayoim ke kuloi. The Amar Shmuel Lachik Devei Amikal Ba'avel, as we saw yesterday, we go with the lenient opinion with regard to Avelus. So if we have a bit of a fight over here, we're going to go L'Kula. We're going to say mixes hayoim ke kuloi at the end of day 7 and at the end of day 30. But now, once we're discussing the din of Shloshim, the question is, where does the din of Shloshim come from? Says the Gemara, Shloshim Yomi Nolan, where does the din of Shloshim come from in the first white line of Yotesim Beis? Yalav Pera Mi Nazir. Tivach, it says over here by Shloshim or Sheikh Mal Tifra'u, says that Aaron HaKoyin was told, do not let your hair grow. Uksiv Asam, and that's how we learn out that everyone else, yes, has to let their hair grow. Uksiv Asam, and it says by a Nazir, Godal Peras Aroishai. The growth of the hair should grow. Malahalon by Nazir Ishloishim, Avkan Ishloishim. From the same word of Tifroyu and Pera, we know it's going to be 30 days, Nazir, 30 days of Avelos. That's how we know the concept of Shloishim. Don't get a haircut for 30 days. Vahasam, you know, and how do we know Nazir is 30 days? Gemara, we've seen already. Amarav Masna, Stan Naziris is Lamid Yoy. My time, Amarkra Kadosh Yihiyeh. You should be holy. Yihiyeh Yud Hey. The Gematria Tlasim Havu is the Gematria of 30, and that's how we know a Stam Nazir is 30 days. And of course, parenthetically, we also see that the concept of Gematria is obviously real. Says the Gemara, we're going to go a bit deeper into that which we just said a moment ago. What did we just say a moment ago? We said that mixes ayam kikulai, the din of Abba Shal, that when Shiva ends, it ends in the morning. Even though you don't have a full 7 days, it ends in the morning. Then you can go and take a bath. But Amarav Masna Breder of Yeshua, 4 lines into the white lines, V'yitasim Abeis, Hakol Moedim, everyone agrees. Kishchal Shlishi Shalai Liyos Erev Regel. When the 3rd day is Erev Yontif, what's day number 3 we saw yesterday? That after day number 3, Yontif comes and wipes away the rest of them. So if day number 3 is Erev Yontif, so you might think, what's today, day 3? But if the Avelis is ending with Yontif, today is Ki'ilu, as if day 7, because it's the end of Shiva. So maybe you would think Mixas Hayoim Kikuloi, and the day number 3, Erev Yontif, in the morning, you'll have to take a haircut, you'll have to shower, excuse me. Says Ravuna Breder Yeshua, everyone agrees, no. Sha'asar birachitza ad erev. You gotta wait tonight. In this new din that Yontif is pushing it away, you have to actually wait until Yontif, and you're not allowed to say because the Velos, the Shiva is ending, it's as if day 7 and mix a Yom Kikula, therefore you're allowed to do it in the morning? No. You have to actually wait for Yontif, and then you're going to have to bathe and shower in accordance with the restrictions of Yontif, cold water, etc. I found Rav Papi, I found Rav Papi and Rav Abba Diasi v'Kamri Halacha. Kavuna Breder Rav Yeshua, like we just said, that is of Psak Halacha. Ikati Amri, some say Rav Nechemia Breder Rav Yosef Ashkachin Rav Papi Rav Abba Ravuna Breder Rav Yeshua Diasi v'Kamri Hakol Moedim. They were all sitting and they said over this halacha. Shivchal Shlishi Shali as Erev Regel Shaz Berachitza Ad Ha Erev. Beautiful. Says the Gemara. One last question before we call it a day. Abaya were five lines on the bottom of Yitesim Beis. Kavrai Beregel. You buried someone on Yontif. On Yontif itself, on Cholamayit itself. Regel Oilalim Mini Shleishim. Oin Oilalim Mini Shleishim. What is the status with Regel? What is the status with Shleishim? We know in this case, what's the story with Shiva? Shiva starts after Yontif, as we saw. Only if you already started Shiva before Yontif can Yontif cancel it. Here you couldn't have started Shiva before Yontif because the Misa and the Kvura and everything was on Yontif. So now ask the Gemara, what's the status with Shloishim? So the Gemara now first explains. Leminian Shiva, like can we buy? You didn't ask about Shiva. Why? It's Shiva Regel. There's certainly no Shiva on Yontif. Part of Shiva is to sit on the floor. Part of Shiva is halachais that is not Yontif and it has to be done after Yontif. Our question is specifically with regard to Shloishim. The Kanagi Mitzvah Shloishim Beregel, you are able to observe Shloishim at some level on Yontif. Why? Because the primary surim of Shloishim are not to take haircuts, freshly clothing, etc. And that works with Yontif. So what is the halacha? Meaning, we know that when the death and the kvur and everything happens in Yontif, the Shiva is after Yontif. What about the Shloishim? Amar Leina Eile, it does not. So Rabbi answered, it's not included, and the Shloishim begins after Yontif. Esvei. So Abaya asks Rabbi from the following brayso. If you bury your dead 2 days before Yontif, we saw that how many days do you need to sit Shiva so that Yontif cancels your Shiva 3. So if it was only 2 days, what's the halacha? You have to sit 5 days after Yontif. Why 5 days after Yontif? Because you had 2 days before and 5 days after. And your malacha is done by other people. And your servants and your slaves are allowed to do work for you in private, inside your house. And the public do not do anything for you after Yontif. After the Yontif, they don't do anything. Why? Because they do come for Shiva and Yontif. And I see, unfortunately, I don't have the next daf in front of me. So, we'll pick it up in the Esvei in the next year in Mirza Hashem.